the 125-pound division for the men in the UFC, and it was, Henry Cejudo just absolutely annihilating the emaciated TJ Dillashaw at UFC Fight Night 143 in Brooklyn. It was quick. It was 32 seconds. Um, Jay, I've seen you drink beers in about that time, but this was a UFC headlining main event, and it was quick, and it was the first one on ESPN. So I guess that's a pretty big deal too.
It was fast. I know, as everyone else does, TJ's disputing it, calling it early stoppage. Some people feel one way, some people feel the other. Obviously, Henry feels the other. I, uh, I mean, sure, you can say it was early, but it looked like it was more than past the beginning of the end for TJ. And where the 125-pound division is in limbo, what the hell does this do for anything? Because what I assume they're going to do, because this happened so fast, I could see them doing it at an instant rematch, doing it at 135, telling Cejudo, okay, here's your options. Either you go up to 35, we cancel out this division, you stay there and you fight TJ right away for a belt, or you don't get the TJ rematch at 135 and you stay at 125 and keep fighting, and eventually they're going to shut it down anyways. Because did you see how empty that arena was that night? Not a whole. They're not bringing in tons of people. They're not filling seats at 125. And this is a super fight that there was quite a bit of hype around it, more so than most 125-pound fights, and more so than most of Henry Cejudo's fights. TJ, he had some hype going into his last fights because of obviously his animosity with Cody and Dominic and everything else. His title fights, anyways, that he's had over the past couple of years. But Henry, he's not a big draw by any means, and TJ going down didn't help a whole lot. And I think they hyped this fight up as much as they could, and those two did the best job they could, and they're still not putting asses in seats. So even though Henry goes out, has this great performance, where do we go from here?
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, the counter argument is just because Henry Cejudo, as a gold medalist in Olympic wrestling and, you know, now a champ at 125, legitimately over two like phenomenal guys, right? I mean, having wins over Demetrius Johnson and TJ Dillashaw is a really big fucking deal. I mean, that's like
Huge.
a really big deal, right? I mean, he's in these arguments for best, whatever ever, right? So, but here's the thing. Just because he's not going to sell out an arena in Brooklyn or be on a pay-per-view doesn't mean that they have to just disband the division. Like, why do you have to get rid of the division? So just don't put these guys as the centerpiece of your cards. Make them co-mains, or put these title fights when they happen somewhere on top of a card. Or if it is, honestly, if it's a fight night in Fairfax, Virginia, and you want to throw those people a bone, give them a title fight with these guys. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't see why there's such a rush to have to disband the division. Like, just because they're not going to sell zillions of dollars. I mean, there are fans that still want to see it. There's not as many, but if you're tuning into a fight where John Jones and or Daniel Cormier are headlining and you really want to see those guys, you certainly wouldn't mind seeing this fight right before. You're certainly going to be entertained by it. So just because this champion might need a little help, like promoting, um, I just don't think that you like this is, to me, it's throwing away the baby with the bathwater, which is I don't know if they have that expression in Canada. Maybe it's throwing away the baby with the ice water. I don't know. But why get rid of the division? Like, you don't know at what point where the 125-pound Conor McGregor super promoter is going to pop out and all of a sudden make people care. Like, I mean, I know it's a rare bird. I know it's unlikely, but why prevent these guys from being able to make a living? I mean, it's kind of a low maintenance thing. You don't have to ever pay them like what you're paying the big guys because of what he's going to bring in, and like that's fine. That's just
But are they
fine.
getting? Is the UFC getting their return?
Of
Even they're not
course they're
paying them
getting
as
their
much.
return. Of course they were
I
getting
mean,
their return.
they're not going to lose. They're not in the game of losing, but and I would like to see it stick around because guys like Benavidez, he fought on Saturday night. I just do not see him fighting at 135. Back in the day, he was small for 135. Guys are bigger in all the weight classes now, and the same goes for 35. Guys are just bigger now at that weight class. And a guy like Joseph Benavidez, I just don't see him being able to survive there against some people because he's such a veteran. He has so many skills, been around for so long. It's not like he can't win there, but overall, he's gonna. That's a tall order for damn sure. And there's other guys too that maybe not as small as him, but definitely significantly smaller than your average 135er these days. So I think if they do shut down the division, you're going to see a lot of people either have to leave their contract and go fight possibly in one, or go up to 35, take that risk, and maybe take a couple beatings and be out of the UFC anyways.
Look,
Um,
that's a regression if you do that. I'm sorry. It's a regression if you know that you have a guy that is this good and you are throwing away the division and making him fight at a weight where he's just probably almost certainly not going to be as good. I think you can make a very easy argument for saying that if this fight happened again and it happened at 135, that the outcome would be different. I mean, we saw what happened to Demetrius Johnson when he was up at 135 against Dominic Cruz, right? It was different. It's just a different that size is one thing, but the thing really for me is at 125, Cejudo has such a speed advantage that he's not going to have at 135 anymore, or it's going to be less of a speed advantage because he's going to be carrying 10, 10 more pounds, plus whatever he's carrying that night. It's a different weight cut. And, he had trouble weight cutting earlier in his MMA career to get to 125. So I sort of get where people could say, well, he kind of was showing himself to be a 135er before. Yeah, but I mean, he's basically showing you at this point that he's going to be unstoppable and he could put a Demetrius Johnson type run against the 125-pound division. But, if you throw away the division, Jay, it's just you're never going to mine the new talent. Anybody who's low, they're all going to leave and they're gonna try some other sport, or they're just not gonna bother with MMA because there's no place for them to go except for, maybe Singapore. I mean, why? Why do you want to do that? Like, if the 125-pound division, if Cejudo all of a sudden gets a foil, right, and if this guy is somebody who could really promote, then guess what? They could go trade somebody for Demetrius Johnson again and get him back. Why not? Sure, why not? I mean, and now if you were talking about, Dillashaw and Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson and Benavidez and, new X person who we just made up, all of a sudden you have a little bit of depth in the division and it's not so bad. I mean,
nobody's gonna care.
I know, but you don't have to care as the person who is going to do. You don't have to tune in to watch that fight. But if that fight is a co-main event to something, you're going to be entertained by it. So
I'm
not
going to be
everybody.
entertained either way, but
Okay,
casual fans,
let me
casual.
let me rephrase. Let me rephrase. Look at this card, the main card, right? Yeah, Glover Teixeira. He's subbed Carl Roberson, and that was in a round. You had the Paige Van Zant demolition of Rachel Ostovich. I mean, that's good for their game, right? And Benavidez over Dustin Ortiz, fine. Long decision. The Gregor Gillespie stays undefeated and takes care of a Yancy Medeiros. That's an impressive win. I mean, that's not an easy win at lightweight, right? So that's impressive. But Okay, and then you get to Greg Hardy, the debacle where he knees Crowder and gets DQ'd in the second round. So you get to the top of this card, and Dillashaw, like you said, and Cejudo, they do a good job promoting it, but it like in theory, but in practice, it doesn't look like, a lot of people were too excited. The thing is, on this card, you still needed those other fights to entertain you, and it was a good card, right? Wasn't it a good card? Wasn't it an entertaining card?
An awesome card.
Right. So nobody was tuning in for the Glover Teixeira Carl Roberson fight, but that was a really good 3 minute and 21 second fight that ended, in a finish. So, like, the co-main event, if it's Henry Cejudo against whoever, right? You might not be tuning in to get that, but you're tuning
So
in
what?
as an ESPN viewer now. Let's look at the new landscape, right? As an ESPN viewer, okay, yeah, I've heard about the UFC. I've seen a few of them here and there. Now it's on, and let me see what this thing is all about. And they just want good quality in there. And yes, there's going to be certain people that you want to really follow and you get your hooks into, but for the most part, you need depth in the cards. The UFC has succeeded over things like boxing because it's one organization and because there's depth in the cards. In boxing, you tune in to watch Floyd Mayweather, and is there even an undercard? I mean, sometimes there's like a fight or two before, and some of these pay-per-views maybe they have three or four fights. Um, but you don't even know. You don't even know who's on these undercards, right? And you don't even care. You're like, I don't even care. Like, oh, is there a friggin' undercard? I just paid $75 to see like Canelo. I mean, okay, fine. In the UFC, that's not the business model. The business model is somebody can start tuning in at 6 o'clock and see some kind of crazy shit that they never saw before because Eric Koch decided to do a flying, knee and then pull it into a triangle and sub somebody. Like, and I'm just giving him props because like he was my boy back in the day. But like that sort of stuff, right? Like, I mean, and that happened at a UFC in Newark. Eric Koch won fight of the night or knockout of the night or whatever it was. He won a bonus in the first fight of the night because of his knockout. And that's what the UFC could give you. So when you have a Cejudo and you try to say we don't need the 125-pound division because he can't headline a pay-per-view, then I'm like, fine, let him be a co-main event. Let them structure cards where the 125-pound title is the feature match on the quote unquote free prelims before a pay per view, the one that's going to draw me in. Wow, you're giving me a title fight for free? Oh, sure, I'd love to see the heavyweight title fight, but I'm going to have to buy the pay per view for that. But wow, you're giving me this title fight on ESPN? So I think I'll check that out. I think I will check that out. This is the highest quality that I'm going to get. I'm not really that into the 125ers, but you know what? You're bringing me in. You're bringing me. I don't really care what the guy's name. Oh, he won a gold medal. Oh, that's great. Is this going to be a good fight? Yeah. Okay. Get me a beer. Let's watch it. Uh, so
So what do you do? What's the best option now if you do keep it? Do you give TJ the rematch and do it at 135 so Henry can have his chance at being champ? If you do that, then it's just 125ers fighting with no belt on the line, so it's even harder to get that hook to bring people in. If not, you just keep Henry down there. Don't do the super fight. Don't give him his wishes. Don't give TJ his wishes, and just let Henry see what kind of run he can go on against up and coming 25ers.
I mean, I think you win either way.
I
I think the loss is flushing the division down the toilet. I think that's the loss. I mean, look,